Judge Caprio's eyes twinkled with that rare mix of sternness and understanding that had earned him millions of fans. He leaned forward slightly, steepling his fingers. Michael, he began slowly, you've just admitted that your story wasn't true. You weren't visiting a friend. You were coming home from your girlfriend's house. Michael's shoulders slumped. The confident young man who had entered the courtroom with rehearsed answers was gone, replaced by someone humbled, exposed, and realizing the weight of honesty. Judge Caprio paused, letting the moment sink in not just for Michael, but for everyone in the courtroom. The silence was thick, almost palpable. Son, the judge continued, his tone softening, the law doesn't just punish people for mistakes. It's about accountability. And right now, accountability means telling the truth. You did the right thing by finally being honest, even if it took a little longer than it should have. Michael nodded, his voice barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Caprio glanced at the officer and the clerk, then back at Michael. I could fine you, and technically, I could suspend your license. But that's not always the solution. Sometimes, teaching someone the importance of honesty and responsibility is more effective than any ticket or punishment. He leaned back in his chair, a faint smile forming. Michael, you are a young man with a lot ahead of you. Let this be a lesson not just about speeding, but about the value of truth. No more fabricated stories. No more excuses. Learn from this. That's all I ask. Michael's eyes filled with relief, gratitude, and a hint of awe. Thank you, Your Honor, he whispered. The courtroom exhaled collectively. What had started as a routine traffic case had turned into a lesson in integrity, humility, and personal responsibility, all under the watchful and compassionate eye of Judge Frank Caprio. As Michael left the courtroom, the young man had more than just avoidance of a fine, he had a lesson that would shape how he made decisions for years to come. Judge Caprio had once again turned an ordinary case into an extraordinary moment of justice. That young man walked into courtroom 6A thinking he had everything perfectly planned out, rehearsed every line, and polished every excuse, but he hadn't counted on Judge Frank Caprio. The 20-year-old defendant approached the podium, holding his traffic citation like it was a shield against reality. Your Honor, I wasn't speeding, he said, his voice steady, confident. To him, it was just another routine case. But to Judge Caprio, every gesture, every pause, every flicker of nervous energy was already telling a story he knew how to read. Caprio's eyes lifted from the papers before him, the calm intensity of decades of experience radiating from his gaze. There was something about this young man, too rehearsed, too confident, that immediately set off alarms in the judge's mind. You weren't speeding, Caprio repeated slowly, his voice measured, carrying that familiar Rhode Island cadence that had made him beloved far beyond Providence. Tell me, son, what's your name? Michael Romano, Your Honor, the young man replied, straightening his shoulders as if preparing to do battle. But Caprio didn't miss the subtle tremor in his hands or the tension in his jaw. Within moments, the truth would begin to unravel. The courtroom was silent as Caprio reviewed the police report. Officer Patricia Johnson had clocked Michael at 47 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour zone on Federal Hill at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Clear violation. Yet Caprio's sharp eyes caught the inconsistencies, the story, the timing, the rehearsed confidence. Michael, the judge began, leaning slightly forward, his voice soft but penetrating, you're telling me you weren't speeding on Federal Hill last Tuesday night? Yes, Your Honor. I was careful, following every law, maybe even under the limit, Michael said too quickly, a little too rehearsed. His words, though confident, lacked the subtle rhythm of truth. Caprio nodded, letting the courtroom absorb the tension. Then, with a subtle, knowing smile, he asked the question that would change everything. And where were you going at 2:47 a.m.? Michael hesitated, his confidence faltering for the first time. I was visiting a friend, Your Honor. A friend? Caprio repeated slowly, savoring the weight of every word, yes. Tony, Your Honor. Tony Marchetti. The courtroom leaned forward. Michael's rehearsed narrative was starting to unravel. Judge Caprio didn't rush. He let the silence stretch, observing every micro-expression, every flicker of hesitation. And where does Tony live? The judge pressed gently. I don't remember the exact address, Your Honor, Michael muttered. His facade was cracking. Caprio's eyes twinkled faintly, a sign that a legendary courtroom moment was about to unfold. Michael. I've lived in Providence all my life. I know Federal Hill like the back of my hand. I know every street, every family, every corner. I also know that there is no Tony Marchetti living there. In fact, I don't believe you were visiting any friend at all. Michael's face drained of color. He knew he was caught. There was nowhere to hide. He stammered, searching for a way out. I was coming home from my girlfriend's house, Your Honor. Caprio's expression softened, a mixture of relief and disappointment. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. And why didn't you just tell the truth from the start? My girlfriend's father, he doesn't approve of me because I'm not Italian. I was trying to avoid trouble, Your Honor, Michael admitted, hanging his head in shame. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, the weight of his wisdom filling the room. Michael. I understand. You were scared. You made a mistake. You lied, yes, but the truth finally came out. And that, son, that is what matters. The courtroom held its breath as Caprio delivered the lesson only he could give. The truth might get you in trouble today, but lies will get you in trouble for the rest of your life. You see, if you had told Officer Johnson the truth initially, you might have walked away with a warning. But you compounded your mistake with more dishonesty. Michael's eyes welled up. I understand, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Caprio's voice softened. I see something in you that gives me hope. You admitted the truth when pressed. That courage, that honesty, that's worth more than any fine. Then, in a moment that would later go viral, Caprio did something unexpected. He picked up the citation, paused dramatically, and said, Michael Romano, your ticket is dismissed. The courtroom gasped. Michael could hardly believe it. Caprio raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Not because you deserved it, but because today, you've learned a lesson more valuable than money. This is your one free pass, abuse it and you'll regret it. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Michael whispered, tears streaming. Good. And remember, honesty is not just for officers or judges. It's for life. Treat your girlfriend and her family with respect. Treat everyone with honesty. That's how good people recognize good people. Michael wiped his tears, nodding emphatically. The courtroom erupted in applause as he shook the judge's hand, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Judge Caprio turned to the room and addressed every defendant, clerk, and visitor. This is justice. Justice is not punishment alone. Justice is learning, growth, and the courage to do right. Remember, lies have short legs, but the truth will set you free. As Michael left, Caprio called out once more, 6 months from now, I want a letter from you. Tell me how honesty has shaped your life. That letter will tell me whether this day changed you or if it was just another moment you'll forget. Michael Romano walked out of courtroom 6A that day carrying more than relief. He carried wisdom, accountability, and a story of a judge who could see past fear and lies to the human heart underneath. As Michael left courtroom 6A that day, Judge Caprio returned to his bench and called the next case, but the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The tension, the silence, the quiet awe, it was clear that everyone present had just witnessed something extraordinary. A masterclass in justice tempered with humanity. During a brief recess, Officer Patricia Johnson, who had written the original speeding ticket, approached the bench. Your Honor, she said quietly, her voice thick with admiration. I've been a police officer for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like that. The way you got to the truth, the way you handled that young man, it was incredible. Judge Caprio smiled softly. You know, Patricia, that boy reminded me of myself at that age. Full of pride, scared of getting in trouble, willing to tell a white lie to avoid consequences. Sometimes, the best justice we can provide is a lesson that prevents someone from making bigger mistakes down the road. Do you think he'll really write you that letter? She asked. I don't know, Caprio admitted. But if he does, it means today changed his life. And that's worth more than any fine or penalty I could have imposed. 6 months later, a letter arrived at Providence Municipal Court, addressed to Judge Caprio. Michael Romano had kept his promise. He wrote about how the day in courtroom 6A had transformed him, how he had embraced honesty, met his girlfriend's father respectfully, and navigated life's challenges with integrity. Most importantly, he shared his decision to pursue a career in law enforcement, inspired by Officer Johnson's professionalism and Caprio's wisdom. The letter concluded, that day in your courtroom taught me that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about helping people become better versions of themselves. I want to spend my career doing the same thing you do, helping people find the truth, even when they're trying to hide from it. As Caprio finished reading, he did something rare. He wiped tears from his eyes. Not for himself, but because justice, when applied with understanding and compassion, had truly worked as it should. Years later, Michael Romano became Detective Romano with the Providence Police Department. On his first day, he walked back into courtroom 6A not as a defendant, but as a law enforcement officer presenting cases to the same judge who had changed his life. Well, Judge Caprio said with a knowing smile. Detective Romano. I've been following your career. Top of your class at the police academy. Commendations for honesty and integrity. I'm proud of you, son. Michael stood at attention, uniform crisp, voice steady. Your Honor, not a day goes by that I don't remember the lesson you taught me here. Every time I'm tempted to take a shortcut or bend the truth, I hear your question, what were you really doing on Federal Hill? Caprio nodded approvingly. And what kind of person did you choose to be? The kind who faces the truth head-on, Michael replied. The kind who believes everyone deserves a chance to tell the truth, even when they're scared to do it. Caprio's eyes twinkled with pride. I've seen thousands of cases over the years, but yours reminds me why I love this job. You turned a moment of weakness into a lifetime of strength. Then Michael reached into his jacket pocket and handed the judge a small, worn piece of paper. Unfolding it carefully, Caprio read the note. The truth might get you in trouble today, but a lie will get you in trouble for the rest of your life. Your father's words, Michael said, I quote them to every young person I interview, every defendant I guide. You didn't just change my life that day, Your Honor, you gave me a mission. Caprio's voice grew thick with emotion. My father would have been proud to know his words are still helping people decades later. That's the power of truth, Michael. It doesn't just free one person, it ripples outward and frees others. Michael smiled. And, Your Honor, the girlfriend from that night, we're married now. Her father walked her down the aisle and told everyone that the young man who admitted his mistake and learned from it was worthy of his daughter's love. We have 2 children now, and I plan to bring them here one day, to show them the judge who taught their father that honesty isn't just a policy, it's a way of life. The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on the reunion of mentor and student, Detective Romano. Caprio said formally, this court recognizes you as living proof that justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. As Michael saluted and prepared to leave, Caprio called out one final time, Michael, one more question. Yes, Your Honor? Are you happy? Yes, Your Honor. Every single day. Judge Caprio smiled, knowing that this was the true measure of justice, lives transformed, lessons learned, and a legacy that would ripple far beyond the walls of courtroom 6A.